You filthy old woman! Get out of my shot before you contaminate the entire frame. Genevieve Hayes said it like performance art. 2:15 p.m. on a Tuesday in March. The Apex Global Tower lobby. Marble gleaming. Designer light fixtures casting cathedral shadows. Genevieve, in her $18,000 crimson Oscar de la Renta gown, gold-dipped mop bucket, positioned like a prop. 43 guests with champagne flutes watched. Cameras recording. Doris Miller stood 4 feet away. 67 years old, blue cotton uniform faded from 1,000 washes. Canvas sneakers worn through at the toes. Hair wrapped in the same headscarf she'd worn for 15 years. Black face among a sea of Manhattan's elite. "Ma'am, I just need to finish this section." Genevieve's laugh cut like crystal shattering. "How long will this cleaning masterpiece take?" "Grandma?" Doris's voice stayed steady. 2 minutes, then I'll be invisible again." Silence rippled across the marble. Then laughter. Nervous, performative, real. Genevieve lifted the bucket. Golden, ridiculous, filled with dirty mop water she'd demanded from the maintenance staff specifically for this moment. "Perfect. Clean yourself for 2 million Instagram impressions, cleaning lady. When you fail, security removes you." Doris whispered, "Ma'am, please, don't." The water fell. 90 minutes earlier, 12:45 p.m., Doris had started her shift at the usual time. 6th floor first, then the executive suites, finishing with the lobby before the afternoon rush. The Apex Global Tower sat like a monument to everything she distrusted. Steel and glass. 73 stories of wealth so concentrated it distorted gravity. People who'd never scrubbed a floor, never counted pennies, never wondered if their son remembered where they came from. Carter's building? Her son's empire. The one he'd built from nothing. The one she refused to corrupt by claiming her place in it. She found the maintenance closet on the ground floor, the service elevator, and beside it, the break room where someone had left yesterday's Wall Street Journal. Front page, Carter Miller, the CEO who refuses interviews, building an empire in silence. To Doris, it was proof she'd done something right. She folded the paper carefully, tucked it into her locker beside her purse that held $47, her late husband's photograph, and Carter's first-grade report card. The one that said, "Exceptional integrity, watches over others." Through the break room window, she could see everything. The lobby transformation happening in real time, red carpet unfurling like a tongue, camera crews assembling, Genevieve Hayes's PR team directing traffic with clipboards and headsets, the kind that cost more than Doris's monthly rent. Doris found her mop and bucket, started with the perimeter while they set up the center. Quiet, efficient, the way she'd worked for 43 years. She heard the commotion before she saw her. Genevieve Hayes arrived like weather. Red gown flowing, blonde hair styled in waves that required 3 people and 4 hours to achieve. Photographers shouting her name. The woman who'd married Arthur Hayes 6 months ago, 32 years his junior, who'd turned philanthropy into performance art and kindness into content. "No, no, no!" Genevieve's voice ricocheted off marble. "The lighting is all wrong. I need contrast. Where's the poverty aesthetic we discussed?" Her assistant, trembling, gestured to the folding table with canned goods. "We have the food drive display." It looked staged. Genevieve's eyes scanned the lobby, landed on Doris. Locked. Perfect. Doris felt it like a target painting itself on her back. She kept mopping. Slow, methodical circles. The way her mother had taught her. dignity in labor, pride in the work, not the applause. Genevieve's heels clicked closer. You, cleaning lady, I need you in frame. Doris looked up. Ma'am, I need to finish. It's for charity. Genevieve said it like absolution. You'll be helping people. People like you. The cameras were already rolling. Doris Miller began every shift the same way. 5:47 a.m. 3 minutes before the automatic lights triggered in the Apex Global Maintenance Wing. She liked those 3 minutes in the dark. Silence before the fluorescents hummed to life. Stillness before the building woke and remembered it was a temple to money. She kept her locker sparse. Blue uniform, canvas sneakers, the headscarf her mother had tied for her first job 51 years ago. No photographs of Carter, no evidence of the connection that could shatter the careful distance she'd maintained for 7 years, since the day he'd signed the lease making Apex Global the tower's anchor tenant. The other janitors knew her as Doris. Reliable Doris. Early Doris. The woman who never called in sick, never complained, never asked for the easy assignments. They didn't know she'd put herself through nursing school while raising a son alone. Didn't know that son now commanded empires from the 47th floor. That his signature appeared on documents worth more than most people earned in lifetimes. She preferred it that way. Doris started each morning on the executive floors, 68 through 73. The rarefied air where decisions shaped markets and secretaries earned 6 figures. She moved through conference rooms like a ghost. Emptied trash bins filled with crumpled strategies. Wiped down tables where men in $8,000 suits forgot to say thank you. Sometimes she found Carter's coffee cup. Black, no sugar. The way she'd taught him, practical, unsweetened. She'd wash it carefully, set it in the break room with the others, and feel a quiet pride she could never voice. He didn't know she worked here. She'd made sure of that. Different last name on the employee roster. Her maiden name, Williams, the one she'd used until Carter was old enough to remember Miller. Different shift pattern from his schedule. The kind of invisible labor that kept buildings running and powerful men convinced the floors cleaned themselves. Her co-workers thought she was crazy. Darlene from night shift had said it directly. Woman, your son is a billionaire and you're scrubbing toilets at dawn? But Darlene didn't understand. The wealth had happened too fast, too complete. Carter had gone from full scholarship graduate to Silicon Valley prodigy to Manhattan titan in less than a decade. Each promotion had pulled him further into a world Doris didn't recognize. A world where people like Genevieve Hayes existed, where cruelty wore couture and empathy was a photo opportunity. Doris had seen what money did, how it replaced values with valuations, how it turned children into strangers and mothers into accessories. She would not become an accessory. So she kept her secret, kept her uniform, kept her dignity in the only way she knew how, through work that required no explanation, no justification, no corruption, through labor that remained hers. Genevieve Hayes had planned the moment for 6 weeks. Every detail curated for maximum viral potential. The crimson Oscar de la Renta gown, custom-dyed to photograph perfectly against marble. The gold-dipped mop bucket, commissioned from a Soho artist who specialized in ironic luxury. The hashtag focus grouped across 3 demographics. Hashtag Generosi glows. Her PR team had mapped it like a military campaign. 43 influencers confirmed. 7 camera crews positioned at strategic angles. The food drive display arranged to look authentic, but not depressing. Poverty as aesthetic. Suffering as content. We need 12 million impressions by midnight, Genevieve told her assistant, scrolling through her phone while makeup artists applied the third layer of highlighter. Trending in 4 markets. I want Vogue calling by Thursday. The assistant nodded, frantic. The reporters are asking about the charity. Which organization receives the donations? Genevieve waved the question away like cigarette smoke. Does it matter? Pick something with children. Orphans photograph well. Across the lobby, Arthur Hayes watched his wife orchestrate her performance with the exhausted resignation of a man who'd bought a tiger and learned too late it had teeth. 73 years old. Billionaire. Real estate titan. Reduced to spectator at his own building's charity event. He'd known who Genevieve was when he married her. 28 years old. Stunning. Strategic. The kind of beautiful that made old men forget they were old. She'd promised vitality. Delivered chaos. 6 months. That's how long the marriage had survived before he'd started recognizing the pattern. The performative kindness that curdled into cruelty the moment cameras stopped rolling. The charity galas that raised money for causes she mocked privately. The way she spoke to service staff when she thought no one important was listening. Arthur had built empires on reading people. He'd misread her completely. Darling, he tried, approaching carefully. Perhaps we should simplify the setup. This feels brilliant? Genevieve cut him off. Smile sharp as surgical steel. It is brilliant, Arthur. This is how relevance works in 2025. You wouldn't understand. He wouldn't fight. Never did anymore. The prenup had been ironclad, but divorce at his age felt like admitting defeat. So he stood there, tuxedo perfect, spine straight, watching his wife position herself for photographs that would cost him more than money. The cleaning woman entered the frame. Blue uniform, quiet, doing her job. Genevieve's eyes lit up like she'd found the missing piece. Arthur felt his stomach drop. He knew that look, had seen it before, always followed by consequences he'd spend months apologizing for, paying for, trying to bury. But never like this. Never this public. Carter Miller was explaining the Singapore acquisition when his phone vibrated. Once, twice, 17 times in 30 seconds. He ignored it. The 12 board members around the obsidian table represented $340 billion in combined net worth. You didn't check notifications during presentations that determined whether Apex Global expanded into Southeast Asia or watched competitors claim the territory. The logistics infrastructure requires an 18-month build, Carter continued, slide advancing. But the government incentives offset. His phone lit up like an emergency beacon. Texts flooding in. Email alerts cascading. The kind of digital avalanche that meant crisis. Real crisis. Not market fluctuation or competitor posturing. Something immediate. Carter glanced down, saw the building's head of security, then his executive assistant, then names he hadn't heard from in years, all sending the same thing. A link, a video, 2 words. Your building. Excuse me? Carter's voice stayed level. Continue without me. Sarah will handle questions. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. 67 stories up. The city spread beneath him like a kingdom he'd built from nothing. From a childhood in a 2-bedroom apartment where his mother worked 3 jobs so he could have tutors, could have opportunities, could have the chance she never got. Carter opened the video. Apex Global Lobby. Marble floors he'd personally selected. The woman in the red dress he recognized immediately. Genevieve Hayes. Arthur's catastrophic mistake. Cameras everywhere. some charity performance that hadn't required his approval because it was happening in the public common areas. Then he saw her. Blue uniform, headscarf, the way she held the mop, efficient and dignified, exactly how she'd taught him to approach every task. Methodical, thorough, proud. His mother. Carter's throat closed. The board meeting dissolved into white noise behind him. He watched Genevieve lift the golden bucket, watched the water arc through air like a weapon, watched his mother fall, clutching her chest, sliding across marble she'd probably cleaned that morning, watched Genevieve laugh. The video was already at 2 million views, 17 minutes old. Carter turned. 12 faces looked at him expectantly, waiting for explanation. "We're done." His voice came out glacial, foreign, the tone that made competitors retreat and lawyers nervous. "Sarah, finalize Singapore without me. Board adjourned." "Carter, the vote requires adjourned." He was moving before anyone could respond. Out the conference room. Past his assistant who rose with questions he didn't hear. Into the private elevator that descended 67 floors in 90 seconds. His phone buzzed again. Text from building security. Situation contained. Woman in red identified as Mrs. Arthur Hayes. Janitor being treated. Media arriving. Carter typed back with shaking hands. "That janitor is my mother. Touch nothing. I'm coming down." The elevator dropped. So did his carefully constructed walls between personal and professional. Genevieve Hayes had just made the worst mistake of her life. Genevieve's PR director reached her 40 seconds after the video went viral. Madison Chen, crisis specialist, the woman who'd salvaged reputations for senators and CEOs. She arrived breathless, phone pressed to her ear, face pale. "We need to pivot immediately. Full apology. Hospital visit. Donation to—" "Absolutely not." Genevieve was still smiling, checking angles on the footage her videographer had captured. "This is perfect. Look at the engagement numbers." Madison's voice dropped. "Genevieve, it's at 3 million views. The comments are proof of reach." Genevieve scrolled through her phone, delighted. "Controversy drives visibility. Everyone knows that." "They're calling you a monster. They're talking about me." Genevieve gestured to her assistant. "Draft a statement. Something about unfortunate accidents and clumsy staff. Mention we offered her medical assistance. Make it sympathetic, but not apologetic." Madison grabbed Genevieve's wrist. "Listen to me. This isn't a scandal you spin. This is assault on camera. The woman fell. She's elderly. You're laughing in the footage." Genevieve pulled away, irritated. "She bumped into my display. I reacted. It's her job to stay invisible, and she failed." She turned to the cameras, still recording. "Did anyone actually see her get hurt? She's probably fine. These people are tougher than they look." The statement went out 12 minutes later. Genevieve's team posted it across all platforms simultaneously. Perfectly formatted, hashtags optimized. Today's charity event took an unexpected turn when a staff member accidentally disrupted our photo opportunity. In the commotion, water was spilled. We immediately offered medical assistance, which was declined. We hope everyone can focus on the real mission, helping those in need. Generosity glows. Mistakes happen. The internet responded in 7 seconds. 4 million views became 8 million. Comments sections exploded. Someone found Genevieve's old posts mocking service workers. Someone else compiled a thread of her deleted tweets about lazy poor people. A former housekeeper came forward with stories, then another, then 6 more. Madison watched the metrics with mounting horror. "Genevieve, we need to pull back. Issue a real apology. This is escalating. Let it escalate." Genevieve was posing for photographs with confused donors, champagne flute raised. "Tomorrow everyone will have moved on. They always do." Arthur Hayes stood near the elevator bank, watching his wife perform for cameras, while security helped the cleaning woman to her feet. The woman whose name he didn't know, whose face he'd never really looked at. He pulled out his phone, started typing a text to his lawyer. Then Carter Miller's private elevator opened. And Arthur understood exactly how wrong Genevieve had been about everything. The private elevator opened without sound. Carter Miller stepped into the lobby like verdict delivered in flesh. Silence spread outward from his arrival. Conversations died mid-sentence. Champagne flutes paused halfway to lips. The 43 influencers who'd been documenting Genevieve's charity performance turned their cameras toward the man who never gave interviews, never attended events, never appeared anywhere he didn't control absolutely. Genevieve saw opportunity before she saw danger. "Carter!" Her voice rang out, perfectly modulated, arms extended like they were old friends. "How wonderful that you're here. We're raising awareness for—" He walked past her, didn't break stride, didn't acknowledge her existence. The crowd parted. Camera phones rose instinctively. This was content. This was the kind of moment that algorithms loved. Carter reached his mother. Doris was sitting on the marble bench near the security desk, uniform soaked, headscarf askew. A security guard hovered nearby with a first aid kit she'd refused. Her hands were shaking, not from cold, from rage she'd spent 67 years learning to swallow. Carter knelt, took her hands, said something no one else could hear. Genevieve recovered quickly, followed him across the lobby, heels clicking, smile never faltering. "Carter, there's been a misunderstanding. This staff member had an accident during our setup, and we've offered full medical—" "Her name is Doris Miller." Carter stood, turned. The temperature in the lobby dropped 20 degrees. "She is not staff member. She is not this woman. She is not part of your content strategy." Each word came out precise, surgical. "She is my mother." Genevieve's smile fractured. "Your what?" "My mother." Carter's voice rose, cutting through the lobby like a blade. "Doris Eleanor Miller. The woman you just assaulted on camera for Instagram engagement. The woman you humiliated for 2 million views." "My mother." The phones capturing everything. The reporters rushing closer. The security guards who suddenly understood why their CEO had descended from his office for the first time in 3 years. Arthur Hayes, frozen near the elevator bank, face draining of color. Genevieve laughed, nervous, disbelieving. "That's impossible. She's a janitor. Your mother can't be—" "A janitor?" Carter stepped forward. "You're right. She's a registered nurse who worked 3 jobs to put me through school. Who taught me that dignity comes from work, not wealth? Who's been cleaning this building for 7 years because she refuses to take money she didn't earn?" Doris stood slowly, uniform dripping, head high. "Ma'am," Carter addressed the nearest police officer, voice carrying across the marble. "I'm pressing charges for assault. I have 43 witnesses and multiple camera angles." The police officers moved forward. 2 of them, already present for the charity event's security detail. They'd watched the entire incident, watched the video spread across their own phones while pretending not to notice. Now, they had no choice but to notice. "Mrs. Hayes," the senior officer began, hand near his belt, "we need to ask you some questions about—" This is absurd. Genevieve's voice pitched higher. Arthur, tell them. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. Arthur Hayes hadn't moved from the elevator bank. 73 years old. Billionaire. Philanthropist. Man who'd built Manhattan's skyline. He looked at his wife like she was a stranger. Looked at the woman in the blue uniform. Really looked at her for the first time. Recognition dawned slowly. The woman who always arrived early. Who cleaned his office with such care. Who'd once found his late wife's wedding ring behind a radiator and returned it without fanfare. Carter Miller's mother. Arthur! Genevieve's desperation cracked through her performance. Do something! Arthur pulled out his phone instead. Made a call while 43 influencers recorded. Robert, it's Arthur Hayes. I need you to file divorce papers, today. Yes, I understand it's Tuesday. I don't care. Irreconcilable differences. Infidelity clause, prenup enforcement, full asset seizure. Everything we discussed. He paused. No, I'm certain. I'm watching her get arrested. Genevieve lunged toward him. The officers caught her arms gently but firmly. Carter wasn't finished. For the record, he addressed the cameras directly now, Genevieve Hayes has been living in the Hayes Mansion on Fifth Avenue. That property is owned by a trust I manage on behalf of my stepfather. As of this moment, she has 72 hours to vacate. Security will assist. You can't, Genevieve struggled against the officers. I can. I own the building. I own this tower. I own half of Manhattan's commercial real estate, Mrs. Hayes, including the spaces where your boutique charities operate. Carter's voice stayed level, clinical. Every lease, every permit, every business relationship you've cultivated through my stepfather's name ends today. He turned to the reporters, the influencers, the entire digital audience watching this moment cascade across platforms. Let me be clear about what happened here. A wealthy woman assaulted a working person for entertainment, for content, for validation. She's too empty to generate honestly. Doris touched her son's arm, gentle, grounding. Carter softened slightly. My mother taught me that power without accountability is tyranny. So here's accountability. The officers began reading Genevieve her rights. Her red gown dragged across the marble she'd demanded be spotless. The gold bucket lay on its side, empty now, ridiculous in the aftermath. Arthur Hayes walked toward Doris, extended his hand. Ma'am, I owe you an apology. Several years' worth. Doris Miller had spent 67 years making herself small, invisible. The kind of quiet that let powerful people forget she existed until they needed something cleaned, fixed, or removed. Not today. Wait. Her voice cut through the chaos, not loud. Didn't need to be. The word carried weight that volume never could. The officers paused. Genevieve, halfway through her Miranda rights, looked up with desperate hope. Carter turned, surprised. The cameras swiveled toward the woman in the soaked blue uniform, who'd just stopped her own justice. Doris walked forward slowly. Her knee hurt from the fall. Her shoulder ached where she'd hit marble. Her pride, though, was intact, unbroken, polished to a shine that no amount of dirty water could diminish. She addressed the officers first. I don't want her arrested. Mama, Carter started. Doris raised one finger, the same gesture that had stopped him mid-tantrum at age 5. It still worked at 34. She turned to Genevieve, looked at her directly. The red gown was wilting now, wet at the hem. The perfect hair had started to fall. The smile was gone completely. replaced by something raw and terrified. "I want you to understand something," Doris said quietly. "I could press charges. My son could destroy every financial relationship you have. The internet has already ended your social career." She stepped closer. "But I'm not interested in revenge, Mrs. Hayes. I'm interested in change." Genevieve's face twisted, relief and confusion warring for dominance. "Here's what you're going to do," Doris continued. "You're going to apologize. A real apology. Not a statement crafted by publicists, not a non-apology that blames me for being in your way. You're going to look into these cameras and say you were wrong, that you treated another human being as disposable, that you understand why that's unacceptable." The lobby was silent. 43 influencers capturing every word. And then Doris's voice strengthened. "You're going to write a check, $10 million, to a foundation I'm going to establish for employment protections and dignity in labor. You'll do it publicly. You'll attend the launch. You'll spend 1 year volunteering in service positions to understand what you tried to humiliate." Carter watched his mother with something approaching awe. Arthur Hayes pulled out his checkbook without being asked. "I'll match it. 20 million total." Genevieve opened her mouth, closed it. The officers still held her arms, waiting for Doris's decision. "Or," Doris said simply, "I press charges. You get a criminal record. The internet never forgets. And you learn nothing except how to play victim." She tilted her head. "Your choice, Mrs. Hayes. Justice or revenge. Transformation or destruction." The cameras recorded everything, history being written in real time. Genevieve's voice came out broken. "I'll apologize." "Good," Doris said. "Start now." Genevieve's apology took 11 minutes. She cried through most of it. Real tears, probably for the first time in years, though whether from remorse or self-pity, no one could say for certain. The cameras captured everything. Her mascara running, her voice breaking, the way she couldn't quite meet Doris's eyes when she said, "I treated you like you were invisible. Like you didn't matter. I was wrong." Arthur Hayes wrote the check on the marble bench where his wife had humiliated a woman he'd walked past 1,000 times without seeing. $20 million. Foundation name left blank for Doris to fill in later. His hand shook slightly as he signed. "I enabled this," Arthur said quietly, extending the check to Doris. "Not just today. For months. I saw who she was, and I chose comfort over confrontation." He looked older suddenly, tired. "That makes me complicit." Doris took the check, folded it carefully. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes." "Arthur, please." He glanced toward Genevieve, who stood flanked by officers, red gown bedraggled, empire crumbling in real time. "The divorce will be finalized within 90 days. She'll receive nothing beyond the prenup minimum, $500,000. Enough to start over, not enough to stay comfortable." The police escorted Genevieve out through the service entrance, past the dumpsters and recycling bins where the invisible people worked. Photographers followed like a funeral procession. Her PR director had already resigned via text. Her influencer friends were deleting tagged photos. The internet had moved from outrage to schadenfreude in under an hour. The lobby gradually emptied. Security cleared the remaining guests. Camera crews packed equipment. The 43 influencers scattered to edit their content, knowing they'd just captured the viral moment of the decade. Carter waited until they were alone. Just him and his mother in the vast marble space. 7 years, he said finally. You've been here 7 years. 7 years? Doris confirmed. You could have told me. I could have. She touched his face, the way she had when he was small. But then I would have been the CEO's mother, not Doris, not myself. Carter's composure cracked. The man who'd built empires, who negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, who'd just destroyed his stepmother's life with surgical precision. He cried like the child he'd been when she'd worked 3 jobs to keep him fed. I'm so sorry, Mama. For what? Doris held him. For becoming exactly who I raised you to be? For defending someone who needed defending? For understanding that money doesn't make you better than anyone? She pulled back, looked at him fiercely. Don't you dare apologize for that. For not protecting you sooner. Baby, Doris smiled. I've been protecting myself since before you were born. Today you protected my honor. That's different. That's everything. 1 year later, the Apex Global lobby looked different. Same marble, same cathedral lighting. But where Genevieve's charity performance had unfolded, a portrait now hung. 8 feet tall, commissioned from a Pulitzer-winning photographer. Doris Miller. Blue uniform, headscarf, mop in hand, eyes looking directly at the camera with the kind of dignity that couldn't be taught, only earned through decades of honest work. The plaque beneath read, Doris Eleanor Miller, founder, the Miller Foundation for Employment Dignity. Power without accountability is tyranny. Labor without respect is exploitation. Carter stood before it most mornings. Board members learned to wait. Investors learned not to schedule meetings before 9. The CEO's morning ritual was non-negotiable. 10 minutes with his mother's portrait before the day's empire building began. Doris herself was rarely in the building anymore. The foundation had consumed her the way Carter's business consumed him, completely, passionately, without reservation. She traveled constantly. Congressional hearings in Washington, labor summits in Geneva, college lectures where she spoke about dignity in work to students who'd never considered the people who cleaned their dormitories. The foundation had grown beyond anyone's projections. Arthur Hayes's $20 million had been matched by 6 other billionaires shamed into conscience by viral video. The Miller Foundation now operated in 47 states, providing legal defense for workers, funding education programs, and lobbying for employment protections that treated janitors like the essential workers they'd always been. Doris had become something she'd never sought. Famous. Not celebrity famous. Important famous. The kind where senators returned her calls and corporate boards feared her audits. She still wore the blue uniform in most of her publicity photos. Still carried a mop in her office at the foundation's headquarters. Reminder of where she'd come from. Warning about where she could send you if you exploited the people who worked for you. Genevieve Hayes worked at a Starbucks in Newark. Different name now. She'd taken her mother's maiden name after the divorce. Different life entirely. Studio apartment. Subway commute. Manager who didn't care that she'd once worn designer gowns to charity galas. She made lattes. Cleaned bathrooms. Mopped floors. Some customers recognized her. Most didn't. The ones who did either pretended not to notice or left deliberately extravagant tips, unsure whether they were being kind or cruel. Genevieve had completed her year of mandated service work. Could have stopped. Didn't. Something about the routine had become necessary. The simplicity of tasks with clear beginnings and endings. The way customers said thank you, sometimes, and meant it. She'd never be forgiven. The internet didn't forget. Her Wikipedia page would always lead with the incident. But she was learning slowly what Doris had tried to teach her. Dignity wasn't something you wore. It was something you did. Carter's assistant appeared beside the portrait. "Sir, the Singapore team is ready." Carter nodded, touched the portrait's frame once, headed toward the elevator. His mother had taught him everything he needed to know. Just took the world of viral video to understand what he'd always known. Some people are born powerful. Others earn it through decades of quiet grace. His mother had earned it. Every single day.